Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, and gunner, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I am swell, Charles. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to pitch a brand new televisual series for our listeners to imagine and come up with in their minds and think about what the characters would look like. Probably the main character looks like the person who's imagining it, because that's how fiction works usually.
Really?
Sometimes, mostly.
I pitch a lot of female protagonists. And,
yeah, I know. So they're probably...
I hate to break it to you if you couldn't tell by my voice, but
not a female.
I'm not the most feminine person.
Yeah, so we're going to pitch a TV show today. You're going to pitch a TV show, and I'm going to criticize you, because that's what happens. That's how the show works.
Thanks.
I'm going to criticize, not the TV show, I'm going to criticize you as a person.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
What do you got?
See, I can't see you. I was going to say something about, like, your hair's too long or it's too short, depending on what length your hair is.
My hair is pretty long right now.
Your hair's too long.
Thanks, Mom.
My hair's also too long, so, you know, what are you going to do? Is it touching your shoulders yet?
No.
My hair's almost, it's like half an inch away from touching my shoulders. I'm getting there. But what's this TV show? You have a TV show for us?
Yeah, so if you remember, like, you know, not last week, but the week before, when it was my turn, I said I had two shows about how I didn't like Don't Worry, Darling, and I felt like it could have been better. Well, this one is more directly by how I would have done Don't Worry, Darling.
Oh, because the last one wasn't a TV show, it was a film. It was The Liberty Project. One of my favorite pitches
but see, that was...
of the post-100 episodes era.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I wrote a lot for that.
Yeah.
This one, it's very similar because they're both in the same vein. I was like, I want to do my Don't Worry, Darling, how it should have ended sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like how it should have gone. Yeah,
but not without fancy animations, because we're not that talented, are we?
We're not.
I'm not that talented. You're busy, so
yeah.
You could figure out how to draw things.
I mean, yeah, it take a lot of work to animate.
Yeah,
it takes like months to do that. You gotta like color and stuff. Coloring is probably the worst part to me.
Coloring sounds so hard.
It's drawing's not too bad, but the coloring. I mean, I might as well just.
Gotta think pink, green, purple. Ugh, why is with all these choices?
You gotta do shading and shadows. I mean, shadows. I've just. Ugh.
No. What we do in the shadows? No way.
Nope. No. We don't do the shadows. That's the name of our animation.
That's the name of our vampire show. It's animated, and it's just...
We don't do shadows. There's no shadows. That's the only thing about it.
There are no shadows. It's just like... We just have a animated, like, light bulb pointed at the viewer. Like, we turn in each episode, it gets slightly brighter. Like a frog boiling, until the final episode of the final season is like, it's so bright it'll blind the viewers. That's what I think. That's good. That's a good episode idea. That's a good TV show idea. Good job, Jake. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Yeah. All right. Tell me about this pitch, this episode, this show.
Okay. So, if you haven't seen Don't Worry, Darling, you probably don't want to listen to this. Well, actually, it probably doesn't matter now that I think about it, because I changed a lot of stuff.
Florence Pugh.
It's not the same, really, at all.
I haven't seen Don't Worry, Darling, but does Florence Pugh have a bad Russian accent in it?
No, she's American in it, I think.
Is she American
I think she's
in
British
real life?
in real life.
Oh, okay. With a name like Florence Pugh, I would expect her to be British.
Yeah. So, the first episode, our main character is Alice Hart. Alice is the wife of George Hart. She's a dutiful partner, content with her role in life. She's a bit curious and carries a deep longing for something more. Loves to dance, big into music, and has occasional psychological insights when people are having issues.
Oh, so she can be like, you're mad at your dad or whatever.
Yeah. George Hart is her husband. Mm-hmm. He's timid but loving. He cares for her. He's very charming, but not in like a charismatic way.
Not in a
like,
Harry
not in an
Styles
overly
kind of
charismatic way.
Yeah.
It's like he's charming to her, and like he's nice to her.
Okay.
But he's not like the guy that can like control the room and be like, oh, party, have fun, yay. Everyone's like, oh, George, he's so great.
He's not a Jake Gloth type.
He's like a laid back kind of charming.
Yeah.
And no, that is what you just said is not true. Anyway, he's a lower employee at this company, owned by Mr. Christopher Wright. And he's obsessed with Wright. He sees him as like a god figure. You know, he's like a big fanboy.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can have an
Constantly
establishing
talks about how
shot.
great he is.
Establishing shot of the first episode. We like go by, the pictures on the mantle, and we have like, oh, there's their first date. There's, them getting married. There's them holding hands, and then there's a picture of Mr. Wright. Just in the corner.
Not really an establishing shot, Mr. Film Major, but whatever.
I'm not a film major.
I'm joking that you're not.
No, that's true.
Because establishing shots usually, well, and it doesn't matter.
Establishing shots
Christopher
are
Wright
outside usually. I know.
Is mysterious, charismatic. He's an entrepreneur who runs the town. He's very handsome, late 30s.
A real Elon Musk type.
Head of the business that everyone works on.
Ooh.
He's nice, but commanding and inspirational and a little intimidating.
Okay.
He's capable of the purest gestures and the cruelest acts. That's what I wrote.
I like that a lot.
The town we're in, it's called Eden. It's like a retro-futuristic 50s town in the 21st century. Everything is owned by Mr. Wright. All text is like 50s style with like modern capabilities. There's no internet or cell phones. Traditional gender roles are followed throughout the town.
Okay, so
like
there's no
50s traditional
ladies
gender roles.
working. They're ladies in the house, and they're all raising the kids and everything. The boys are playing with footballs, the girls are playing with dollies, that sort of situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
The town is very like conservative 50s. Everyone follows that rule. And it's sort of like ingrained in the society, and they have like a radio show that plays throughout the whole TV show we're listening to. That's like a radio broadcast. That's like Mr. Wright, like, ingraining the values into the town of like, tradition, old values,
History.
freedom, simple life sort of stuff.
Yeah, that sort of situation. Gotta do what your parents did because your parents made you, and you're pretty good, right? So if you do something different, you'll make bad things happen.
Yeah. Next character, Mallory Slate. She's the fun, quirky next-door neighbor / best friend to Alice.
Is she also a married, happy, content housewife?
Yeah, she's married to John Slate, who she jokes about how she hates him. Kind of like if you haven't seen WandaVision, but if you have seen WandaVision, Wanda's neighbor is like this, where she is fun and quirky, but she constantly jokes about how she hates her husband. Oh, funny.
Are you talking about Agatha all the time? Oh, I haven't seen WandaVision.
Agatha Christie.
Agatha Christie.
Anyways, John Slate is her husband. Just as devout to Mr. Wright as George.
Ooh, that's odd.
Doesn't really like Alice.
Oh, they don't like each other.
No, not a big fan of Alice. So despite Alice being best friends with his wife, not a big fan of Alice. And he's kind of like the, they joke about how they hate each other, but they don't hate each other, the husband and wife.
Yeah, they like each other, at least.
It's like, oh, my husband's an idiot, hoo-hoo, everyone laughs.
Yeah. And my wife's a nag, haha. That sort of sitcom-y comedy.
And lastly, out of the main peoples, we've got Lily Wright. She's the wife of Christopher Wright. She's very cold and composed. And very involved in his work.
What would you say?
Her role specifically is very it's not discussed really. It's very quiet and no one really talks about it, but people are kind of scared of her.
Yeah. What would you say the ages of these people are? You know?
Mostly like 30s, early to late. Like Christopher Wright is late 30s. Everyone else is probably late 20s, early 30s.
Okay. I just want to make sure that there isn't a, big age gap. I'm
like
picturing
Alice
these people.
is 31.
Okay.
And so is George. And Mallory's probably like 35, and John's like 36, and Lily's probably like 39, and her husband's probably 40.
Do they have kids? The Wrights?
They can, but it's not really related to the story.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't have anything about kids,
Well, if it's a conservative
There's kids in the
50s
town.
town and they don't have kids by their 30s, I as a viewer, I would assume that was part of the mystery.
Nah. I mean, there's kids. I just don't really discuss them,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the kids are there, but they're not like people in the story.
Yeah, they're auxiliary to what's going on.
Yep. They just exist in the background. Anyways, the pilot episode. Very 50s sitcom. Boss is coming to visit. Alice stresses about making dinner.
Oh, no.
Oh, Mallory comes over and helps her. Meanwhile, George and John are at work at the office, and they're stressing about layoffs, and he's like, we gotta do well at this dinner so I don't get laid off by Mr. Wright. Oh, I love Mr. Wright. He's so cool.
Let me give him a little smooch on the cheek, because kissing him on the lips wouldn't be okay in this conservative 50s town.
Mr. Wright shows up for dinner. Oh no.
The dog got out, and he tracked mud all over the house 5 seconds before he gets there.
And he ate the whole chicken breast that Alice made, and she's like, "Oh no!"
We have to run to the
But
local
Mallory,
grocery
to the
store.
rescue, she's like, "I cooked the whole dinner because I thought something would happen. You can take mine, and we'll just eat nothing tonight."
My family will starve.
And Alice is like, "Mallory, you're the best." And the audience is like, "Oh, Mallory, she's great." She's like, "It's all right. My husband can starve. He's a loser."
He sucks, and he's bad in bed, probably.
Well, we wouldn't say that. It's 50 sitcom. She would say something vaguely.
Yeah, she would say like, "Oh yeah, this chicken was cooked quick, but not as quick as my husband." Bah ha ha ha. And then there'd be a laughter.
That might be too obvious.
That might be. You're right. I wasn't around in the 50s. I need to.
Oh, you weren't. Oh shit.
You know what we need to do? We need to talk to some 50s sitcom writers. See what they would think.
Sure, they're all dead.
We could find a few. I'm sure there's at least one alive.
Like they sit down to dinner. They're eating dinner.
The kid runs
George
in.
talks about his sleeping problems briefly, and Alice makes a very professional comment about it and like what he should take, what kind of pills he should take.
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of confused, and Lily looks at her and she's like, "What are you talking about? What are those pills? I've never heard of those before." And she's like, "How would you know anything about that?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was a dream or something."
Yeah.
For some reason that felt like something that I knew before. Mm-hmm. And this whole time, Chris is looking at her. And as they leave,
he's giving her the
he
evil
says,
eye.
He is. He says, "I look forward to seeing more of you."
Does he kiss her on the hand, and then his wife looks at him like a little annoyed?
I mean, I guess maybe, but for a second, for a single frame, maybe 2 frames. I don't know. The shot changes briefly, and it's him in modern clothing rather than his like 50s suit attire thing.
Oh, he's wearing like a t-shirt.
And it's back, and Alice like blinks a little because she's like confused for a second, and then
It would be.
she looks back. She's like, "Okay, this is normal. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong."
It would be. I know this isn't the vibe of the show. This isn't the tone, but it would be funny if it was like, all right, for modern clothing, we're gonna give him a Rick and Morty t-shirt.
No.
Gonna give him a pickle
It's
Rick
a serious
t-shirt.
show, Charles.
I know. It's a serious show. There's no Rick and Morty references in serious media.
Yeah, I challenge you to find Rick and Morty reference in a serious show.
Have you ever seen?
You can pull it off in like a Breaking Bad type show, but with
Rick
like
and Morty
Jesse saying it. But he didn't obviously didn't exist
wubba
then.
lubba
But
dub dub. Listen, I watched Space Jam 2 of The New Legacy, and that's the most serious film ever made, and there is a Rick and Morty cameo in it.
yeah,
We watched that together, didn't we?
we did.
Oh, yeah.
It's a not a good move.
It's a terrible movie. It's possibly one of the worst movies I've ever seen. But back to the show.
Yeah, they haven't made our movies yet, so this would be the worst movies you've ever seen. Anyways, episode 2. Alice talks about Chris's weird remark with George, and George is like, there's nothing, honey. You're crazy, woman.
Yeah.
50s.
You're having one of your hysterical episodes.
Alice is annoyed, and she confides in Mallory, her best friend. Ooh.
Yeah, her best friend.
But, Mallory's like, oh, there's nothing in it. Maybe he likes you or something. Oh, affair. What crazy. Don't do that. Affairs are bad. 50s. Ooh.
It's the 50s. Don't have an affair with a married man. That's double affair, and that's double the trouble.
They go out in town and shop, like, wait, what?
They go shopping.
They go out in town and shop, and they're like, ooh, having fun, yay.
We're doing a montage. We're doing a shopping montage, and we all come out with bags, more bags per shop.
But there's, like, suspicious things, you know? And Alice is starting to notice them, that, like, Mr. Wright owns everything, and she asks Mallory about it, and she's like, it's just the way it is. And there's other little things she's asking about, like, why is there no other towns nearby? And why is there not so many people that live here?
Yeah.
Like, all these little questions, why...
Maybe...
Like, why is everything, in these colors and stuff like that? And Mallory's, like, laughing at us, and she's like, she thinks she's joking.
Why is everything in the company
when she
colors?
finally gets a bit more serious, Alice, keeps questioning her, and finally Mallory takes her seriously. She says, like, not to worry about it. Chris is protecting them. It's a nasty world out there.
Yeah, he's keeping it at bay with all his money.
Yeah. And at one point, there's going to be an earthquake, like a little earthquake, a little shake. Not nothing that would, like, knock anything over, but like a...
Yeah, just enough that you notice it.
Yeah. And Alice will ask about it, and Mallory will be like, the boys...
The boys at
they
the
do
lab.
Their things. They're mining and stuff. And she's like, but you know what they're mining? And she's like, minerals, rocks.
The things that they use to make our pretty makeup. Something like that. Maybe in the montage of them shopping, we can have, like, the mannequins. Like, every time that we see them in a shop, all the mannequins are just looking at them. Just something a little off in the background.
Mm-hmm. A little subtle.
Yeah.
Like that. In the background of all this time, though, we're going to see a red van. A red exterminator van.
Ooh.
And Mallory, kind of getting tired of Alice's, like, ramblings, and she asks if she's eaten today, and maybe she's just, hungry. That's why she's being all weird.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to a nice place for lunch, and Alice feels better. She stops asking questions, and afterwards she returns home, and she tells George she'll stop worrying. George is like, oh, that's awesome. And he's like, romance, and takes her out for a nice evening in the town. And she's...
Get a glass of wine, and it comes from the Wright vinery, or vineyard.
Well, yeah, everything's from...
Yeah.
So, yeah. But they're out, they're having fun, they're drinking. At dinner, she's not really eating much, she's been drinking a lot, so she ends up going to the bathroom to vomit, because alcohol, and he didn't eat a lot. And she's, gotta get rid of that. And so after the post-puke haze, she wanders in the kitchen, because, she just vomited, she hasn't really eaten anything, she's kind of, like, starved. And she doesn't really know where she's supposed to be going because the place is kind of like a maze. Mm-hmm. She wanders into the kitchen, and she sees men in red jumpsuits putting, like, a crushed dust in the food. And she's confused, and they catch her, and she gets knocked out. And she wakes up in bed, panicked, but George tells her that she passed out in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. Episode 2 ended there.
How about... Okay, I don't know if this would work with the rest of your story, but it could be a bit of a situation where she gets knocked out by these dudes. I'm assuming they're in, like, tight red jumpsuits, and they've got, like, gas masks on, like the old style, like, 40s, during the Blitz gas masks that go over your whole face, and they turn over to her, and they grab her, and they, hold her down as they knock her out, and she wakes up, and she's, like, in bed, and then she looks, and she's got, like, her ankle is elevated because it's like she twisted her ankle, and he's like, oh yeah, you had a really bad fall in the bathroom, hurt your ankle or something severe, sweetheart, so here, have some water, and I made you a sandwich.
Yeah.
Episode 3.
That works. The jumpsuits though, not tight. I don't know what you're imagining, but it's a jumpsuit. They're like jumpsuits aren't necessarily tight.
Not tight, but like
they're loose,
Not like...
It's the kind of stuff you'd see, like, maybe exterminators wear, or, like, certain people that work at, that, if you have come to your house to work on it, that, like, are part of one of those companies that really cares what their employees wear.
Yeah.
Maybe people that are, like, painters. Painters generally wear it.
Yeah, one of those, like, a little bit loose-fitting. They've got the crinkle to them. They're, like, you can see where where they've been folded and crunched up and stuff.
Yeah, it's like loose clothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very uniform. Everyone's got the same red jumpsuit on. Mm-hmm. Anyway, episode 3. Alice is unconvinced and starts, sort of probing George about what he does at work. And he's like, I'm an engineer, I told you this. And the earthquakes, they're from the mining. But I won't elaborate because secrets. And he's pleading with her to stop asking questions.
Yeah, I signed an NDA, sweetheart. I can't tell you, even if I wanted to.
I can't tell you. And she's like, you gotta tell me. And she's like, I can't. And so he goes to work, and Alice is like, I'm upset. I'm gonna go through his office. And she's like going through his papers and stuff.
Because it's the 50s.
And everything's blacked out, all the documents.
Oh, that could
anything
be
important.
That's a really cool image of her just like pulling out, like, going into his study and like just pulling out, documents. At first we don't see what's on the documents as she pulls one folder, like manila folder, out and flips through it, and she's like gets concerned. She pulls out another one, looks through it, gets concerned, throws it aside, and like eventually we pull back and realize that like every line on all of these documents is completely blacked out with Sharpie. That could be cool.
Yeah.
She's like, what the fuck?
Which obviously only intensifies her curiosity, because she's like, why do they need to black everything out? Mm-hmm. She tells Mallory when they go to the pool for the day. And Mallory's like, you're losing it. You're just stressed out with promotion season coming up. You need to get your crap together for George.
Here, have this, hamburger I got from the stand.
Yeah, and Mallory's like, you should really... you should really try to, like, worry about George and his career, and maybe try to, like, invite Chris over or something like that. Like, she's telling her, like, she needs to focus on her normal life. Mm-hmm. And Alice is like, I will take your advice, but I'm gonna take it just to, because I need to see Chris again, because I need to figure out what's going on,
Yeah.
Because Chris is in charge. He's in the center of this somehow. And so she calls up George. She's like, we should have Chris over for dinner again. He's like, okay, sure. And so she calls, what's her name? Lily. And she's like, dinner. And Lily's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I'm assuming...
all this dialogue is exactly as I'm saying it, too. Everything.
And I don't know if this is how you imagined her, but I imagined Lily as always having a cigarette. Like one of those long cigarettes that's in one of the holders, like Cruella de Vil.
They probably all smoke because it's the 50s, but
maybe that.
I kind of imagine her as very like composed, the person that's always sitting up straight.
Yeah.
No matter what, maybe doesn't smoke, doesn't drink.
That could be cool if everyone smokes except her.
Mm-hmm. She's too uptight.
Yeah.
Anyway, They come over for dinner, and in the kitchen, Chris sort of teases her with like half-truths that don't really confirm anything, but only, get her bothered more because she wants to understand. Yeah. And at dinner, we get like this nice conversation where she's trying to pull more from him vaguely, and he knows what she's doing. Obviously, she knows what she's doing. Lily sort of knows what she's doing, and George has absolutely no clue what's happening.
He's completely oblivious.
He's taking everything at face value.
Yeah.
I haven't written any of this dialogue, but that's the feeling of it.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And ultimately, they leave, and she's, disappointed because she didn't really get anything. And Chris will have some snappy dialogue as she leaves, like, nice try or something like that. Or
maybe next time.
I thought so much more of you, or something like that.
And he leaves her with
Anyway.
a sly smile.
A sly smile. Boom. Episode 4. She's desperate, Charles.
She's desperate.
She pleads with George, but he won't tell her anything. Yeah, he asks her one more time to stop asking. They've got this big promotion end of the quarter review coming up. And they're supposed to go to this, big event thing for it. And she's like, you need to pull yourself together, because, I really need you to support me at this. It's important. And she's, all in her own head about this stuff. But she sort of gets convinced by him and Mallory that, she needs to be supportive in this moment. And she's being selfish.
Yeah.
By not being supportive and being delusional. And so they go, Chris gives this speech. And as he's talking, and she's watching him, it's intercutting with him in a chair in an office building in casual clothes. And she's shaking her head because she's blinking her eyes, trying to focus on what's happening now, but she keeps seeing this other reality. And it's making her feel sick, and she goes to the bathroom, and she looks in the mirror, and she sees herself with glasses and a notepad, and then she shakes her head, and she sees herself normally again.
Yeah.
And Mallory comes in, she's asking if she's okay, and Alice is having a freaking breakdown, and Mallory's yelling at her, and she's like, you need to calm down, have you eaten anything today? And Alice is crying that it's in the food, and Mallory's dismissing her, and she's like, you're crazy. Yeah. And George eventually comes in, and he's like, all right, we'll go home. And it's kind of this sort of this moment where George is giving up staying at this promotion dinner
to take care of his
take her
wife.
home to help his wife, right? And it and so he takes her home, and she's like, we need to run away, George, I can't handle this anymore, we need to get out of here, there's something wrong. And he's really reluctant about it, but he eventually agrees. And she gets in the car, and we have the classic mobster, somebody's in the back seat.
Oh no.
And they put a mask over her head, and it gasses her.
I'm just thinking of a cool shot where she's they're both sitting in the car, and it's it's night, and so everything's dark.
Yeah.
And it's the headlights are on, so you can see the shot's a little backlit, but they're mostly dark, and she shakingly, because she's scared, she puts a cigarette to her lips and then lights the lighter, and as the lighter ignites, you can see this face of this ghoulish person in the background is illuminated, and just as she lights a cigarette, the arms go around her, and the chloroform goes over the mouth, and they get knocked out and all this stuff.
I like that, but George isn't in the car yet, so maybe
yeah
he opens the door for her to get in, she climbs in, pulls out the cigarette, lighter flicks, that's when the guy grabs her. He puts the mask over her face, and the gas goes in, so it's it's not a gas mask, it's some sort of, it's it's a way to concentrate just so the gas goes into her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not in the rest of the car. And the man in the back seat's wearing a red jumpsuit. And she's dragged inside the house, and a fumigation tent goes up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do we see George?
The exterminator hands George the keys to the car, and he drives off.
Oh, okay. And George is like, he gives him a knowing look, and then gets in the car and drives off. Maybe he can ask him a question, you know? Like, is she gonna be okay? Or, like, whatever. Is she gonna be, fine when I get back, or whatever? And the guy just, like, stares blankly at him. Yeah.
So he's not going to, because, spoilers, George is in on it. But, so he knows what's going on. And that's sort of this moment that you're gonna realize that, maybe he's not so nice.
Not as nice as he appears.
Not as nice as he appears. But he has this, like, somber look, and he's maybe crying because he loves his wife.
Yeah.
It's just that he's devoted to this, whatever it is, more than he loves her. I want to get that across.
Yeah.
He loves her, but
he loves
right
her
now
less
is more
than he
important
loves
than
Mr. Right.
Yeah. Doesn't love her as much as Mr. Right. Open. Episode 5 with Alice. She's a therapist analyzing an unseen person.
Oh.
She's who's now, like, strapped down. Yeah, and she's, like, talking, and she's like, the person's not strapped down. Sorry, I was reading the next line. So we open with Alice. I said therapist, not therapist. We're looking at her. She's in a chair. She has glasses on. She has a notepad. She's talking to someone, and it's very therapist-like.
Yeah.
That's the feeling we're getting. We don't see this person. Maybe we see the back of their head, but it's very unsure of who this person is.
Yeah, it's fuzzy and, out of focus and that sort of thing.
So we get, like, a, short conversation of her lecturing this person about some of the things that are going on, and, like, it's sort of like an introduction, a patient introduction sort of thing. And boom, now we're back where we were before. She's strapped down to this chair in her home.
Oh no.
And everything is dark. There's, like, men in red jumpsuits walking around, and Chris is above her. And he tells her everything's going to be all right, in unison with her own voice. That's, like, the person in,
the
like,
therapist voice.
Therapist person.
Because maybe she can, because that's a lot of doctors do that, where they have a slightly different voice for how they talk to patients versus how they talk in real life. And so maybe it's her doctor voice is saying everything is going to be okay.
But so as she says that in, like, this alternate, like, intercut. I don't really, I don't want to say flashback or alternate reality or anything, because I don't want to give anything away. But it's like, this other scene that's happening. She says it in unison with Chris, who's above her. Boom. He injects her with something. She wakes up with George in bed, and he tells her that their house had, like, a toxic gas in it, and she's been hallucinating. But the doctors saw her, and they said it's out of her system.
Yeah.
And everyone's, like, all around her, and they're all worried, and they're telling her about, like, all the crazy things she saw, and they're explaining to her that it's all because of these hallucinations and this gas that was in the home.
Maybe her ankle is healed at this point,
Yeah. And so, she gets home. I messed up there. She's not home yet. She was at the hospital. Now she's going home.
Okay.
And Mallory and John throw her a welcome party. Remember Mallory and John Slade, her friend and her friend's husband?
Yeah.
Big welcome party. Some other people from the neighborhood that don't have names.
They invite the whole neighborhood. It's a whole thing. Their kids playing, They're doing the lawn darts game that they had in the 50s, where they throw a big knife up in the air and try and catch it.
Yeah. And, everything's going okay, but she keeps, like, looking at some of the faces of people, of, like, her neighbors, and she's a little confused, and, like, 'cause they look familiar, and we as the audience might recognize some of these faces as some of the exterminators.
Okay.
But she doesn't quite recognize them.
They've got, like, this similar builds, maybe, because
build, and I figured that not all the exterminators had, like, masks on.
Maybe we can have one who
or you can just tell by their
cigarette.
eyes,
Yeah.
So you can probably see. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you could see through the gas masks, eye holes, and yeah. Maybe you see one like in the scene where she's strapped down. He's got his gas mask up and he's smoking a cigarette, and like he makes eye contact with her as he draws, and then like the next episode in this party scene, like you get this like a match shot of him making eye contact with her as he's drawing a cigarette, and then he looks away casually.
Yeah.
And she's like,
so she's a little on edge, but not really. But things go overboard once Chris goes there. So like most of the episode is kind of like a fun party. She's sort of like relaxing and sort of like figuring out, like maybe she's not crazy.
Yeah.
And the big third act twist, big boom, explosion, craziness is Chris comes to the party. And that's when she sort of freaks out. And she freaks out, she hides in the bathroom, and Mallory finds her and is trying to help her calm down. And she's starting to calm down, but she's like, you don't understand. Like, Chris, I saw him and he was there and he put the needle in me, and suddenly the door opens and it's Chris, and he says, Mallory, it's time for you to leave. And she says, yes, Mr. Wright, and she walks away. And now it's just Chris and Alice alone.
And closes
and he
the
tells
door,
her,
locks it. No, he doesn't even need to lock it because everyone there loves him.
Yeah. And he tells her that the old methods aren't working anymore, and he's going to have to try something stronger. And this is intercut with her saying the same thing in the office. And he gives her a needle as she gives the patient pills.
Yeah.
End of episode.
She's throwing the patient's throwing the pills back. He's injecting the needle. She's like, dearie me.
Getting stabbed.
Yeah, her eyes are rolling back in her head, and she's falling asleep.
Well, she doesn't really want to take the needle.
Yeah.
So she's like resistant, but Chris is a big guy. So he grabs her, stabs her real quick. Episode 6. Boy, here's where it gets a little crazy, because my notes are all confusing. So, Dr. Alice Schwartz gets up for work and kisses her dogs. That's how the episode opens. Modern day, Dr. Alice Schwartz gets up. Same as Alice.
Yeah, she's woken up by the Joe Rogan podcast. That's how we know it's modern day.
She's at her home.
Yeah.
Maybe she has like some sort of Alexa-like device that's like, good morning, Dr. Schwartz. Blah, blah, blah. You have a patient today.
At
Mr.
4:15.
Rittenbach at 4:15. Yeah. And she's like, okay, kisses her dogs, and she's like, gets on the metro, goes to work, gets in, sees like, somebody on the ride to work. Maybe she's listening to music. She listens to Bob Dylan's The Gates of Eden. A little reference there, because,
because the town's called Eden.
called Eden. Boom.
Because Bob Dylan, and maybe Bob Dylan decides to cameo in our show, and he's on the train. Not even it's not even a reference to the actual plot of the show. It's just we got to talk to Bob Dylan in real life, and we wanted to put him on a show.
Yeah. maybe she's listening to the radio, and Bob Dylan is it's like a Bob Dylan hour on the radio, and we've got Bob Dylan here in the studio, and he's like, I'm old and stuff.
It's me, Bob Dylan. Hi, my name's George Zimmerman.
No, it's not.
Yeah, what is
Robert Zimmerman.
Robert Zimmerman. Sorry, George Zimmerman is a much worse person. My name is Robert Zimmerman.
So she goes to her patient, comes in the room. His name's Chris Rittenbach. It's Christopher Wright.
Oh, no. Oh,
They're doing like the patient intro from earlier, but it's like the whole scene. And he's a crazed man who's got court-mandated therapy after a rally disrupting the peace. And, he's got this whole philosophy about how, he wants things to go back. society is terrible now, and we had it right before, and we need to cleanse the world, blah, 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 propaganda speak.
Yeah, that's sort of lunacy.
And then, boom, we're back. She wakes up in a haze in a laboratory. But back to the previous whatever. Mm-hmm. And she's like all confused, and she's in this nightgown, and she like walks out, and there's tons of people working on stuff. And she freaks out as she passes like weapons and vague boxes marked as dangerous. Mm-hmm. And she keeps walking, but everyone around her is ignoring her. Everyone that's working is just completely ignoring her.
Yeah.
She probably sees John Slate in here, and he just ignores her. They're all working. And she walks in, and she ends up in an office identical to the one from the flashback things or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what the hell is this? This is crazy. And Chris is in there, and he's in the seat that she was in.
Yeah,
in the flashback.
He's got the glasses, he's got the notebook, and he says, oh, please take a seat.
And he's like telling her to sit down in the seat that's like where he was sitting in that flashback. Mm-hmm. And she refuses because she's like, oh, no, fuck you.
Something's up here. Something's fucky.
But she knows something's up. And she's, freaking out. She wants to be out. She wants to get out. She wants answers. And he tells her that she gave him the idea. And we cut with her telling him about how he's smart and there are better places for his talents than what he's been doing. And he, it's like, you gave me the idea. I went ahead and I did it. I did something better. I did something greater. You told me I was better than that. And I went ahead and I did it.
And I believed you.
And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean you did it? And he's like, he's like lamenting a bit. He's like, we're getting near the end here. And you've done this so many times before. But the drugs, they're not working as well as they once were. I guess only true believers will reach the promised land. And she's like confused and like, what the hell are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And from this, we get the explanation that he's like using her as like a test subject.
Okay.
To see if like he can use drugs to control people. Mm-hmm. And get them indoctrinated in his like idea of life being better in the past and like living in a 50s style world under his like leadership, forcing these values, right?
Yeah.
And not just 50s, but like a warped version of it where it's like everything goes to how he wants it and the whole world is controlled in this way, He's got, everyone has their place, and when somebody diverges from their set path, that's when chaos arrives. That's when death happens. Death follows those who walk in their own path, right? And she's like, what? OMG. And well, she's sort of like remembering, and she's like realizing that this guy is her patient. Mm-hmm. And he's like doing this not only as like a task, but also as like revenge for like her trying to make him normal.
Yeah, trying to change him.
Fit him into society the way it is. And he's like, it's not me that needs to change, it's society. And he's like, I will change it. We will do it here. And he's like looking over at the weapons and stuff. And she's like, what are you planning to do? I don't understand. It's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And
you could be like...
And so he's like, well, we won't be able to, we may be able to take you into the promised land, but no one else will be able to come. We won't be able to bring any other non-believers because the drugs aren't working. And she's like, she's getting out of this that he's going to kill a lot of people, right? So that he can start his like world over again.
His weird super
He wants
cult.
to have like a new Eden,
Yeah.
That's the idea. And so he brings in George, and he tells George to kill her.
Oh, okay. I thought he was going to tell George to kill himself. That's what I thought was going to happen.
And he tells George to kill her, and George is like, I can't do it. And he's like, but you need to prove your loyalty, George. you're conflicted by this person, and he's like, you know, referencing how he took her away from the party, and like he didn't know that they were gonna gas her in the car, and he actually was gonna take her away.
Yeah.
You know, but they caught him right before. We get this idea now that like, oh, it's revealed that George was like actually not completely in on it, but was in on it. Like he did love her, and he wanted her not to face this.
He didn't want her to die. So if she couldn't
so he has to like
come, she could.
So he has to kill her to prove his loyalty.
Yeah.
Right? And he can't do it. And he like looks at her, and she looks at him, and there's like, you know, this moment where they're like, you can see that they love each other to an extent, but it's clear that he's betrayed her, right? Mm-hmm. And like, no matter how much love there once was, it really can't make up for what he's done in being complicit in all this.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I mean, like, she doesn't even know. She's remembering her old life, and she wasn't married, so like she doesn't know, like, was he just picked for her? Like, what is this world? Did they fall in love? But you know, the love is sort of genuine, but also sort of not, and like
it's coerced.
And so it's, you know, George is not in a good light here, obviously. But you know, we sort of need some sort of redemption for him, kind of. And so he's gonna tackle Chris and sort of give up on his like old beliefs to try to make it up for all the evil he's done to her. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And so he tackles
him,
Chris.
Yeah.
And he's like fighting Chris, and she like runs out trying to escape. And we're sort of cutting back before and forth between the two. Mm-hmm.
And presumably Chris gets the upper hand, and then he kills him in some gruesome...
fucking kills him. Yep.
Yeah. Jabs a pencil
Very
through
gruesome,
his eye.
probably like pops his head or something. I don't know.
Oh, he takes... Maybe we can have a sign in Chris's office, like a little plaque that's like, best, you know, best town in America, Eden.
Maybe. Oh, I got it. He gets a plaque from George earlier in the show. Mm-hmm. That says like best boss or something like that.
Oh yeah, and he
smashes his head in with it.
Stoving his brains in with it. And I was just gonna say, during the villain monologue, when Chris is explaining the whole like thing with the town, he's like, I thought he could say something like, oh, I thought, you know, we could supplement the belief with drugs, but as many great leaders before me have figured out, belief is the strongest drug there is. Something like that. Belief in drugs, opiate of the masses situation. He's like, I thought I could, you know, turn you to our side with you know, this amazing, you know, technology that we have, these drugs, but I just can't. True belief will never be supplemented by, you know, something. Can't think of a word. But supplemented by drugs. Just say drugs. Come up with a better thing now.
And so, you know, Alice is running. Exterminators are chasing her. Lily's yelling over the intercom, like, get up, Lily, being Chris's wife, you forgot. I didn't really get a chance to explain this, but it would probably be explained in his speech that, like, Lily is, like, the head of security of this town. Mm-hmm. So she's in charge of making sure everyone follows, like, the rules, and the exterminators are kind of like the people that enforce it, and she's sort of in charge of them. Mm-hmm. And while she's the only one that's reluctantly or doesn't know that she's here, right? She's the only one that's succumbed to these drugs. They also use the exterminators, and Lily are also in charge of making sure the believers stay believing.
Yeah, that's why they're putting the powder in the food, is to, you know, the rest of the town, they don't need nearly as many drugs, but they do need, you know, a little bit of chemical help to keep them docile and, you know, dependent, obedient.
Yeah, so they drug him a little bit, but she's being drugged way more than everyone else. Like, the food she buys, and, like, the reason those exterminators were in the back there is because they were doing it to her food.
Yeah.
I was thinking they ordered dessert, like, right before, and their dessert was getting, like, you know, peppered with these pills.
Yeah. It's like this.
And it was made to look like confection sugar or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Maybe we can like explain that. Oh, Chris and the whole town was like Lily was analyzing her psychological profile in order to like make sure that the bread that had the most drugs in it was the most, attractive to her specifically, right? Like, we put the fruit.
Well, you could be more tactile about it and have like the cashier at the grocery store put it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like swift movements,
We have the milkman, and the milkman always gives them, he always goes to their
special
house
milk
first. And he's like, oh,
he always goes to their house too, and he's like, it's portrayed as like him being this jovial, nice guy who has a good relationship with them, but in reality, it's darker.
Yeah, he's a weird, creepy milkman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, she's running, trying to escape, and she runs and she sees like the control room, and she's like, I need to stop whatever they're doing. And Lily's like screaming over the thing, like, stop her before she gets to the control room, blah, blah, blah. She could, destroy important things.
There's a control room.
Really vague here.
Stop it.
But she gets in, smashes a bunch of these like computers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Lily like screams as she does it and tackles her. And like they have a little fight. Exterminator show up, pull her off,
mm-hmm.
And like holds Alice back. And Lily is like, none of it matters because we, all the codes are in Chris's head. It's okay. All the codes are in Chris's heads.
Mm-hmm.
And she like stabs her with a needle. And Chris comes in. He's like, we're gonna try one more time, or this is the last chance you've got.
This is the strongest dose we've ever created and given to a human subject.
And he's like not willing to give up on her yet because he wants her. There's like some crazed idea in his head that he needs her to see the destruction, right? And he wants her to be a part of it, mm-hmm. because of this revenge she has, right?
She's like representative of the whole, world outside of Eden, right?
Yeah.
That's like held back, that he thinks has held back his ideas and taken away from him everything he was promised. And so he needs her there in order to like not only to see the destruction and participate in it, but also to give him some sort of like good job, some affirmation that he was in fact doing the right thing, because he thinks that once this bastion of the old way sees how good this new way is, she'll be, so happy that I changed the world, that she'll thank me. She won't need the drugs.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the big Act 2 moment in this episode. That's like, oh, everything's fallen apart. It's all over now. And the third act of this episode, I imagine that the finale is much longer than all the other episodes. This is the finale, by the way.
I was thinking it was be an hour-long finale, and like 30-minute regular episodes, hour-long finale episode.
So, after she wakes up, and the audience can see immediately that this is not the same Alice that they've come to know. This is the Alice from episode 1.
Mm.
And in fact, this is episode 1.
Oh, George is still alive.
It's like mostly a montage because we don't actually have to do episode 1 again.
Yeah.
But like it's, her at home. She's making dinner.
Dog
for
runs
like
in.
The big boss's dinner. George is not George. It's somebody else, but they call him George.
Yeah.
It's George Hart.
Okay.
She's like, oh, I loved you, George.
With the same pictures.
George's like, I love you too, honey.
Same pictures from the first episode, but George has been taken out and replaced with this new George.
Yeah. It's a new George. And everything's going normally until over like the radio at dinner when she's preparing everything. Chris is in the next room. He's not teasing her. He's just smiling in the next room, talking with George.
Mm-hmm.
She's in the kitchen. She's cutting up some vegetables or something.
Yeah.
And over the radio, she hears "Gates of Eden" by Bob Dylan.
Ooh.
And we've set up before that she's a big music fan. She knows her things and stuff. And so, her musical taste is important to her. And she hears this song and it like triggers the memory of her life because, she heard this song on her way to the office that first day that she met him. And she listens for a second and we can see the recognition in her face. And then she looks over at Chris for a long time, staring at him with like disbelief. And then she looks down at the knife. Cut to black. End of show.
End of show. Cuts. Oh, that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. Ooh.
So the last shot would be the knife.
Yeah, last shot would be her holding the knife, staring at it, and then she looks over at Chris, and then she stares back at the knife. End of show. I like that a lot. That's good. I enjoy that. Good job. What was the title again?
So I had a couple ideas.
I think Gates of
Strike
Eden.
Another Match was one of them.
Okay.
Strike Another Match, and then Made in the Shade was my other one.
Okay. I think Gates of Eden works pretty well as a title.
I don't want to do that because it's like, I want to do that, but I feel like I can't because I'm using the song.
Yeah.
It's a little too on the nose, you know?
A little
the
on
song
the nose.
isn't really related to the thing too much. I just wanted to use it because it's the same name.
Yeah, and it's a good song. And Bob Dylan's cool.
Something with Eden in the name would be good, right?
Yeah.
Because that is the name of the town.
Eden Burning. How's that?
The Burning of Eden.
Burning Eden. Burning of Eden. The Bitten Apple. Something like that. A little bit more.
Shade of Eden.
Shade of Eden. I like that. Shade of Eden. That's good.
I want to do Made in the Shade because it's like a 50s phrase. That means like you have life easy. Your everything in your life is easy. So I guess the Shade of Eden. I like that could be.
Yeah, because that's layered. Because it's like, oh, this is a shade. This is one type of Eden, but also it's like shade is darkness, and the Eden is hidden in the darkness, and there's a secret darkness to Eden. So that's good.
Yep.
I like the Shade of Eden. That's my favorite title. But I like the show a lot. You should watch more middling movies because they give you good ideas for TV shows and
It
movies.
makes me upset. I'm like, all right, well, this is how you should have done it.
Yeah, I did it better than you, and I'm not even Olivia
So you watch
Wilde.
Don't Worry, Darling. That's not the twist. There's no cult of personality. I mean, I guess maybe a little bit, but not really. That's the whole, that pissed me off. This is how I would have done it. I would have made it a cult of personality.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm Mr. Chris Pine.
Mr. Chris Pine. I wonder why. I wonder how Chris Wright got his name. Well, thank you, Jacob.
Christopher Wright.
For a
Well, I want to do Christopher because, like, Christ,
Yeah.
Christopher.
Christopher.
I hate to say this, but he's going to, everyone calls him Christopher in Eden, but in like that therapist world or whatever, like the actual world, the flashback.
Yeah.
He's called Chris.
Okay. That's a good tell.
Little change there.
Yeah, good. Well, this was very good. Very subtle. Lots of twists and turns. I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go. But then it went somewhere.
I also meant to say
good.
that in that first episode, we will hear the Gates of Eden at dinner when she's cutting vegetables.
Okay, good.
So that it's like an exact replica of the first episode. But except at that point, obviously, that song has no meaning.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, it has
tons of meaning.
A resounding meaning.
All the meaning.
And we'll see like a little bit of recognition when she first hears the song.
Yeah.
But George will like say something, right? And like, he'll switch her out of it.
Yeah, snap.
But in the end, George is not saying anything. It's a different George. He doesn't know her as well as the other George.
Yeah. The other George got his brains bludgeoned in with a plaque.
Yeah, he did.
Real good. Probably real gory. Because I'm assuming that would be the only gory part of the show.
He's a hard character, I think, to convey, because it's he is evil, right? He's a bad person for what he's done to Alice. but the redemption sort of, or like the half redemption, it's sort of like a Darth Vader scenario.
Yeah, an attempted redemption.
Attempted redemption.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jacob. I had a good time listening to your pitch. I hope everyone else did.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me is always my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, and gunner, Jacob Gloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your fans, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And yes, I said fens and framly. Those are my new words that I invented for this episode. Yep. And please stay safe out there, folks, because you might get kidnapped by a crazy person who wants to remake the world in his own twisted image, and then you're going to have to fight against the brainwashing and drugs to realize that you're in some sort of weird fantasy. And
just listen to Bob Dylan, and you'll have a moment of recollection that saves you.
That'll save your life.
Where maybe you'll grab a knife and you'll stab the evil man.
Maybe you'll stab yourself. Who knows?
Stops him from remembering whatever codes he was talking about that might have been important to his destruction of the world.
They probably were doing the drilling to put nukes into the center of the world. That's my guess that the drilling was. Mm-hmm. Ooh, who knows? Lots of interpretation, lots of questions.
Does it matter? Should I tell people? Probably not, because it's probably better whatever you come up with.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Than when I thought in my head.
Yeah, just like Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah.
All right, well...
Slightly better. That's what I'm going to name this episode. Slightly better than Don't Worry, Darling.
Okay, I don't know if you could hear that, folks, but there is an ice cream truck going past my house right now.
Oh, could you get me a Choco Taco? Do they have those?
No, Choco Tacos got discontinued last year.
I know.
It's very sad.
Do they have them in?
They might.
They don't. They're not really discontinued. It's all marketing ploy, I guarantee it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
But whatever.
I'll go see.
Next year they're gonna be like, we're bringing it back because of demand, and everyone's gonna be like, well, fuck you.
Yeah. I bought all these Choco Tacos. I've been keeping them in my freezer underground for once the world ends, and now I can just get them again. Ugh.
Nope.
I love a Choco Taco, though.
I got 10 billion Choco Tacos in my freezer.
Yeah, come on.
About 12 freezers. 12 freezers to hold 10 billion Choco Tacos. That's how that works.
Some big fucking freezers.
They're really big freezers.
All right. Well, good luck, all of you, and have a good day. Get some ice cream if you can. Bye.
Bye.